It's just match one of the day. We've got plenty more coming up. We've got BloodTrail versus cheonsu that's going to be coming down now. Both these players, I think cheonsu's got the more steady lineup overall, but BloodTrail has Druid, which does make me happy, and had that kind of runaway game yesterday, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Is this the
because when he just did Druid things.
No-me Druid. Yeah, it can be pretty cool once it gets rolling. We've also got the Malagos Druid somewhere in there as well. Yeah. But for BloodTrail, he is unfortunately having his Druid banned here. And this is, I think, a sign of things to come in Hearthstone Grandmasters Season 2, especially after we get the nerfs sometime next week before Week 2 of Grandmasters. I think Druid could become a real powerhouse, and that little grayed out Druid, I wouldn't be all too surprised to see a lot of that.
Yeah, I agree. We see the first matchup is going to be BloodTrail's Hunter versus cheonsu's Mage. You're going to feel that, just going off matchups and our knowledge and what we've seen, that BloodTrail's got to be feeling pretty good about that. I was actually watching Asmodee's stream earlier, luckily for us. He streams at quite an early EU time, which means it's available when we can watch.
Asmo is my savior.
Yeah, and he was... maybe not getting sniped on ladder. He was playing Mage and his opponents were playing Hunter, basically. Yeah. So that's the idea of this matchup overall. This is the deck, pretty much what we saw from yesterday from almost all the players as well. I will just say the Hunter's pack ticks the box. That's mainly what I'm going to start looking for in these lists.
Yeah, I'm definitely coming around to the Hunter's pack a lot more. I felt at the start you wanted to try and streamline your deck to go a little bit more aggressive, but I think, I don't know, it's weird with Highlander decks, because I would say anything that doesn't do your primary game plan, you want to strip out, because that's generally how you build decks in Hearthstone. Right. You want to do one thing. This deck, you have the ability to play a little bit more, I don't know, wishy-washy. Like, you can go for several different game plans reasonably well. And the Hunter's pack complements the aggressive game plan enough, I think, to warrant it and including it to justify a value game plan.
Yeah, and I think if... it's the fact that the cards aren't completely random. Yeah. They're a beast, a weapon, and a secret. Especially the secret pool being fairly strong right now. I think just if I said, oh, do you want to play this card? It's a 3-mana card that draws or creates 3 other cards that are your class, so synergize with other cards more than likely, and are pretty playable and decent. You'd be like, yeah, that's a good card. And again, in a deck where you can't run Master's Call, I think it is a very reasonable substitute, although not as good, obviously, but close enough. And funnily enough as well, I was just looking at the shield and ban happenings of cheonsu. Yesterday, he shielded his Hunter and got his Mage banned. Today, he shielded his Mage and got his Hunter banned. So obviously, different opponents, different matchups and stuff, but it's just funny the way I feel like a lot of these bans are being aimed at Hunter or Mage.
Yes, I think so. And I think that the general strategy for most players, I saw it across a lot of regions when watching yesterday as well, or a lot of players across the 3 regions, was the idea that you protect your warrior, ban the mage, which makes, I think, a good amount of sense, because warrior is good against pretty much everything except mage at the moment, and so a lot of players were going for that, which inevitably ended up in a lot of warrior mirrors. But I think if you're confident in that matchup, you're very happy to take that.
And also the evolution of that, though, right, as we do get into game 1 between BloodTrail and cheonsu, is if that is the common factor of how you do the format, then suddenly you go, okay, well, if I know my mage is getting banned and my opponent's going to play warrior, what should my other decks be? You know, and then that's how the format starts to really broaden and go a bit wider in terms of your preparation for these players every week. And let's take a look at the opening mulligans. cheonsu, I only just glanced, but it looks okay to me.
Yeah, looking like a very strong start. Only keeping the Twilight Drake, I think, is very reasonable, because while this deck can go super aggressive at the start, generally fighting back around turn 4 is good enough to pull things back in your favor. And Zephyrus, of course, right at the start, can be just so versatile. Getting a backstab on turn 2 if you need to take out the Secret Keeper, very strong, or saving it for, I don't even know, whatever perfect card you need, the perfect piece of removal later on is also very good.
I imagine cheonsu, at least maybe not visibly, but did give a sigh of relief after seeing the no secret turn 2, because we can see if BloodTrail had drawn a secret instead of Ziliax, wow, his game plan goes a little bit nutty.
It goes so much better, it's not even close. And having the alternative 3-drop in the Ursatron obviously makes things significantly smoother. But just look at how much weaker this is than what cheonsu's doing. He's just winning on board. Which is the nightmare. You never want to have that happen to you as the Hunter.
And now, this might just be call me crazy, but is this ever double secret?
That's what I was looking at. They don't really do much right now, but the
neither do any of
alternative...
your minions. That's the problem,
exactly.
right?
Do you play a 3/3?
Surely
I think it's probably the most sensible.
Surely
line.
double secret and then play the Hyena if you need to next turn, right?
Yeah.
Because the Snake Trap just 100% doesn't get procced. And you also know Zephyrus can't flare it because he's already played Zephyrus. So
I think one secret hero power is maybe kind of tempting as well. But, I mean, even if it's a bad snipe, it's still good just to get the mana out of your hand, I think. As terrible as it may feel.
okay, well, BloodTrail had the rough turn, and let's see if he's going to make it any better. I do like the Hyena. It's just a lot of stuff. Get some stats on the board.
Yeah.
And hope that you can fight back here. But already, cheonsu just has options. A decent part of me just Nova. Go.
Push face.
Yeah.
I think you're a little bit ways off from trying to go for something like
What about just
that.
Nova Ray on the 2/2?
That's more like it. I think just something that involves taking good value trades is what cheonsu should be looking at here. Because again, this is not Cyclone Mage where you can just go face, freeze everything, play a giant. You have to play a little bit more honestly a lot of the time until you find Galaxy. Ancient Mysteries, I imagine, will be able to find the Flame Ward. Actually, I'm incorrect. He's not running Flame Ward in his deck.
Oh wait, cheonsu isn't?
No. So Ancient Mystery is not the pick at all, although I think it would be pretty good if he did have a single secret in his deck.
He's running Tiamat as well as Archmage and Tinidus, so cheonsu is running the heavier end, I would say, of some of the mage lists we've seen.
And he does pick up some very nice options there indeed off of the Arcane Intellect. Reno to completely swing the board back in his favor, should it be necessary.
This is where things can start to slowly stack up though, because whenever pressure play is around, you can make some stuff happen and swing board pretty hard. And now there's live drink and pressure play, there's Mass Contender to pull. What secrets do we have left actually? Rat Trap. And freezing, I believe, are the secrets that are left. Both of those pretty good.
Yeah.
I think actually.
Goes with the Reno, swing things back in his favor yet again, and this is where things start to really get rough for BloodTrail, because as the game develops, things just get better and better for the mage, not for the hunter. Until you can find Zul'jin, I think, in particular, the value just isn't there.
It's definitely true, but I feel like this Reno isn't the most impactful because the 1/1 already can kill off the Twilight Drake.
But it just buys time. It didn't need to completely win the board, I think, for cheonsu to be in a great spot, because Tiamat on 7, Tortollan on 8, it all just stacks up.
I mean, the curve's very good. I just mean that I think BloodTrail still has a window to get some stuff done.
I agree. If he can find himself either a lot of chip damage to face over the next few turns, or a very strong swing card. I'm thinking obviously primarily Zephyrus, I guess Bran, and Zul'jin as well. And speaking of that chip damage, here we go for BloodTrail, sneaking in every single point he can get. I think this is pretty smart.
Now the question though, hero power flare or pressure plate? Go for the pressure plate. And I think this is mainly so trade Conjurer's Calling isn't hyper punish, because the pressure plate will kill one of the conjured minions.
Yeah, okay. I thought he was going to go for the hero power there, I've got to be honest. I think he was pretty clearly setting up for one thing, but you know, if he goes all face, he's pretty much just accepting that he loses to Ziliax.
The weird part about the the pressure plate to me, although I like it, is if it probably goes off a lot of the time, right? Mage probably casts a spell. We can see that Tiamat's there, so he doesn't have to at all. But you wouldn't expect it to never go off this turn.
Yeah.
Which means that your Mass Contender is stranded in your hand, and it won't pull, like we said, one of the good secrets. There's a Rat Trap in there. If you can have Rat Trap on board for free against Mage, you're feeling pretty good about life.
Winds of the South, come to my aid!
Interesting pick, isn't it, this Tiamat?
Yeah.
There's nothing obvious that you want to kill, so how do you build it?
Right, I mean, I was looking at Divine Shield Wind Fury as just the most aggressive option, which cheonsu agrees with in the end. But it's it's not especially easy to be killed off. Whereas if you'd gone for like Divine Shield Taunt for like an aggressive and defensive option at the same time, it just dies to double trade plus the Mark Shot, which is I think a little bit too easy to die.
And look at this. The window has been opened. BloodTrail gets a freezing trap to help with his Tiamat, and also going to activate the weapon procs as well.
Which cheonsu.
And he can push some damage, so
Yeah.
I'm not, look, cheonsu's hand is fantastic, but it's a chance.
It's no healing, right? It's no healing and no taunt as it currently stands. So cheonsu, I think, is definitely going to be hesitant to play the Pilgrim because the ooze here would really not be too bad. But Power of Creation is disgusting.
Oh,
that means he can proc the freezing trap. Yeah, wow.
Tortollan.
That's pretty good.
When Tortollan Pilgrim saw the nerfs, he was like, "You fools! You think I'm just a little turtle? Really? Who cares?
Yeah.
If Luna's Pocket Galaxy costs 7 when you can cast it from a Tortollan anyway."
Yeah.
It's a secret member of the League of Evil.
Yeah. Kill Command clearly the most in keeping with his current game plan of pushing face. Unleash the Beast, however, is the most in keeping with Pray I Draw Zul'jin, which is also a very valid game plan to be trying to go for.
I think I like Unleash.
Just more value.
Yeah, I think like... Oh, okay.
Wow.
Well, if he's going to do this, yeah. Fine. But wait, isn't...
This feels very, very...
I think Unleash would have been better. Right? He doesn't have to face tank it, does he? He still does have to face
Divine
tank
Shield
it.
in the 6th.
Yeah. But, so what he's done is he's gained a draw of the secret,
Yeah.
but doesn't have a second Unleash in the hand or any in the pool for Zul'jin. So I'm not sure whether that was better. It's a tough one. But I feel like having something to do next turn.
I think no matter what, it's looking very, very grim for BloodTrail indeed, and even just the decision to not push face. I mean, I guess he was just dead, right, if he didn't clear that off on this turn.
But I'm just thinking he could have a guaranteed another 5/5 to rush and trade next turn, and play Life Drinker, and he might draw Zul'jin, in which he gets 2 5/5s to rush in as well. Like, versus a random kill command that might just kill him.
Fair. cheonsu just trying to dig for lethal here, which he is unable to find quite yet. But I don't think he'll be too sad about that. He can close in very, very soon on the win.
He could also just play these sparks, proc the rat trap and not care because he gets over it. Yeah, all this is absolutely fine.
Yeah, this looks like a good way to do it too. It will of course mean that the pressure plate activates too, but this is a fine board for pressure plate.
Did he not freeze it because it didn't appear? Yep.
Oh!
So he went too slow. The rat trap, the secret procs, does the effect, then the rat comes onto the board. You cannot target it until the rat is actually physically on board, and he waited too long. The second the rope was going down and the rat didn't appear, I was like, he's missed this, 100%. And that is a problem.
And it does mean that he has to trade just to stay alive. But it does mean that he's still alive, right?
Even it means he hasn't lost.
The polymorph, it's still not enough to win the game.
The weird part for me is I didn't see that as an over-complex turn.
No.
Prop the rat trap, freeze.
Yeah.
So I don't know what. And I think the biggest part as well was he could have just not pinged and just Nova'd.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And he would have always landed that 100% because the Nova happens anyway, so.
It's fine. I think he should still be able to win.
It's just a hiccup though, isn't it?
It is a pretty big hiccup. There we go.
Jeez. Never mind! Oh yeah, bit of relief there for cheonsu.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, wait. Oh, revenge! Took him down with it. So victory there for cheonsu, going 1-0 with the Mage versus Hunter, and yeah, I mean Hunter typically has a reasonable matchup versus Mage, one of the better matchups at 100%, but Mage is by no means defenseless, as we've seen time and time again. Even with a slight slip-up, things getting a little bit riskier. There was, even if that wasn't Pyroblast, there was still plenty of other things you could have done.
Still miles in the lead, I think, there, but it just shows the power early on of, well, primarily Zephyrus being used for tempo, which is, I think, a very underrated aspect of the card. I think even in some of the slower control matchups, which obviously that wasn't, you can use it for tempo a lot more at the time, finding yourself backstab, eviscerate, something like that to pull things in your favor. And once that came down, it just made it very, very easy for cheonsu to capitalize on that tempo and just close things out, so that BloodTrail was never even in the game.
Yeah, it's one of those things with the Highlander Hunter. Apart from the secrets already being active, there's no really great comeback mechanics, is there? If Snipe was live, Zephyrus gets sniped, then it's kind of even again. But it wasn't. There was nothing there, so Zephyrus kind of did snowball, as you said. But that was just game number 1 of cheonsu versus BloodTrail. Don't go anywhere. We've got game number 2 coming right up.
Hearthstone Esports is home to many competitive formats, each with their own unique variants and rules. Today, we're going to break down one of them, the Shield Phase Conquest format. And here's how it works. To start, both players bring 4 decks, each from a unique class. The match starts with a Shield Phase. This is where both players choose one of their own decks to protect, making it ineligible to be banned. Once the Protect phase has ended, both players will then ban one of their opponent's decks, removing it from the pool. Each player then selects which of their remaining decks they would like to play first before beginning the first game of the series. When the first game of the series is over, the winner's deck is removed from their pool of eligible decks. Both players then select the next deck they would like to play. The loser of the first game can choose to replay with the deck they lost with, or they can choose one of their other 2 available decks. In best of 3 conquests, the first player to 2 wins is the victor. In best of 5 series, such as those in the semifinals or finals of major events, the first player that makes it to 3 wins takes the W. It's that easy. Shield Phase Conquest allows players to showcase their skill set across different classes, while still giving them the opportunity to play the deck they're most confident with. Now that you've got the download on Shield Phase Conquest, we wish you well on your deck building adventures.
We've got BloodTrail versus cheonsu continuing right now. We are going to be going into game at number 2, but so far cheonsu took a pretty solid win, I think. It was that the Hunter looked okay, but it was kind of shocking how much that Zephyrus on 2 just slowed the game down to almost an infinite amount. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think it was more a case of the Hunter just kind of falling flat on its face. It's got some very high upside cards like the Masked Contender and Hyena Alpha. But obviously, if you're not hitting the secrets, they don't do what they're supposed to do, and everything starts to fall apart. But a new game here for BloodTrail to try and wrestle things back. Up against a Rogue and a Warrior, which are the two decks, one of the two decks cheonsu has to win with. BloodTrail, I think, could be pretty happy to go with the Warrior of his own, take a mirror, or against the Rogue, which is a pretty good situation to be in. The Mage, I think, is obviously very nice against the Warrior, but does suffer against the Rogue. So it's interesting how this queue order seems to be coming in more and more in Conquest Best of 3.
It is. What's very interesting right now, though, is cheonsu, you would think, has a decent read on what BloodTrail's going to play.
Right.
Funnily enough, cheonsu picked Rogue, which did surprise me. Maybe he just doesn't want to play a mirror match. But my view is BloodTrail shielded Warrior, didn't pick it game 1, lost. Surely he's picking it game 2. He shielded it. He wants to play it in the series, right? And if you don't want to play it in the series, then there's no need to shield it anyway. Is the plan? It's not like they shield before seeing their opponent's lineup, right? They see it after. This is going to be just the fairly standard control warrior, as we've seen. Is there anything that really sticks out to you, Darren?
Against the Rogue, there's a couple of things that will definitely help this matchup. 2 weapons projects and Harrison Jones is obviously a pretty big plus in favor of the Warrior, because the new aggro Rogue, which I imagine, cheonsu is rocking here, is very, very susceptible to weapons destruction, with 2 hooked scimitars and 2 waggle picks and a Captain Greenskin and 2 deadly poisons. You really, really don't want to have one of your weapons hit by those weapon destruction effects. The downside, however, is of course that he had to run less 1-drops in order to make room for that weapon destruction. So I think it could be a very interesting dynamic here for the Warrior on BloodTrail's side, where he's able to catch up well in the mid-game because of all his weapon destruction, but he could suffer in the first few turns because he doesn't have that consistent 1-drop.
Yeah, and we did see, funnily enough, that it's almost like the Rogue needs the card Extra Arms to carry all the weapons, because yesterday there was just weapon after weapon after weapon when we saw this deck played. So it will be very interesting to see how it does versus Warrior. I've always been, over the past, maybe the last expansion or so, the Rogue versus Warrior matchup has always been contended for me in the fact that everyone's like, oh, well, Warrior just beats Rogue. I'm like, do you know how much damage Rogue can do by turn 5? Like, Warrior does not have that much safety and removal in the first 5 turns of the game to always just survive. So I think the game is going to feel like it'll be decided completely by cheonsu in terms of how aggressive he can be early on, because they can just get it done. Like, Warrior doesn't armor up that much.
Absolutely, and I think it's a really interesting dynamic that not only Warrior and Rogue have at the moment, but they've had historically, even just since Rastakhan's Rumble, when Rogue really came into its, at least in its current form, into its own, when it had the raiding party put in there, and it had, obviously, I suppose, with the addition of the Rise of Shadows, Heist Baron's Hogwaggle, as well as the lackeys as well, is really, I guess, where it came into its own. And at that point, I think Rogue had a really good shot against Warrior. They had value, they also had damage. Whereas now, this is a super stripped down version of Rogue. There is very, very little in the value, very little value in the deck. Full stop. It's all in on the aggression.
In question now is Generous Mummy is pulled from the Pharaoh Cat. What do you think of this card? Because it's basically, you gain a lot of stats for low mana cost, but you reduce your opponent's cost of their minions by 1 whilst this minion's on the board.
Right.
But it does have Reborn, and it does do a lot of damage. I'm so torn on this card. I don't think I put it in my deck, but I've often just played it as soon as I can in a matchup like this.
Right, well, this is the interesting thing I think about Generous Mummy, is that it is, in my opinion, one of the worst cards we've ever seen in Hearthstone, but it's so much better than that all the time. Like, it should just be awful every time, because it allows your opponent to do ridiculous stuff, like especially against some of the decks that run a lot of cheap cards like Cyclone Mage, at least before this rotation. It would have been insane, or even just allowing your opponent to play Dynamatic a turn earlier, Brawler, Free Shield Slam. It can be very, very scary. But like you said, a 3-mana 5/4 Reborn is so much stats. It's actually absurd.
And this is the way I see it now, is we're probably going to see it come down, is it allows your opponent to do tons of stuff if they run cheap stuff. It allows them to get to cards early. But going into turn 5 against Warrior, it ain't changing much.
Yeah.
Is it?
It's true.
Because look at, well, a 4-drop becomes 3 so they can armor up as well. Cool. A 5-drop becomes 4. Well, Warrior doesn't do much for 1 mana most of the time, anyway.
Good weapons project here if you want to for a full board player. I guess, you know, you don't really want a weapons project until they've played Wagglepick or Scimitar.
And also the tanking 5. Like, look, although, yes, it was frustrating, this is dealt 5.
I agree,
like,
it was pretty good in this instance. And I think against Warrior in particular,
Feels
generally
better,
you're okay to play it.
Yeah. My main point is, although it sucks, there are spots in which it does 5 damage early on, which you're pretty okay with in this deck.
Yes.
Specifically.
Also,
don't go putting it in random decks. That's a bad idea.
I absolutely guarantee that it is weighted towards giving you generous mummy off the Pharaoh Cat.
I do see it quite often.
Every time. I get it. I just can't believe it. Like, when was the last time I got, I don't know, Wrapped Golem or something? Like, the big ones just never seem to come up.
Light the fuses!
It's obviously just confirmation bias there on my part, but
nope,
I still swear.
But like, nope, refuse.
Disagree. cheonsu, however, with a pretty surprising hand to have at this point in the game, where clearly he has not run away with the early game, not even close, but he has left himself with a pretty respectable sized hand here, especially when you factor in the lackeys that come off Evil Miscreant. I imagine he'd be looking pretty heavily for Ethereal Lackey primarily, to try and get a bit of extra value, maybe discover Myra's Unstable Element to draw through his deck in the ideal scenario. But anything would be reasonable here.
Interesting turn as well, because cheonsu's kind of going through, by touching the cards, the mindset of, or the running I've gone through, of gone, hang on, 1 weapon unlocks these Corsairs completely. If you hold them until you draw a weapon, which you just will soon, there's a million weapons in the deck, then even if this board is cleaned up, you have an instant, very, very strong refill. So instead of going, say, Corsair into Miscreant, the second you draw a weapon, you can go Weapon, Miscreant, Corsair, whatever, and then start doing stuff like that. And look at this Brawl coming down from BloodTrail, potentially now. He's put it back in his hand. And this is what I was talking about, right? Wow. Look at what both of these players have done, and then think about yesterday when Tom was playing the game. Tom just does not even touch cards until he is fully locked in his turn, then he plays. And I wonder if this leads to at least small levels of indecision between the players, because they're going, what about this? Oh, what about this? And that might mess with them a little bit.
It very possibly could.
And what is pretty good here is the fact that the weapon was drawn, and this is the power turn, right? This is, look at what just this 1 weapon draw has done.
Yeah, this is absolutely what cheonsu needed. Now, of course, he's looking at either hoping that the damage is enough to get him there if there's no removal, or secondarily hoping this buys him enough time to find Myra's.
And also, it's, I'll say, likely that out of all the minions, the Miscreant lives, in which you could bounce it to get more value, to then at least keep chugging along the short term.
This is a weird spot for BloodTrail. Nothing feels particularly good here. Like, Weapons Project obviously destroys the Wagglepick, but the actual 2-3 weapon lines up horrendously against what's on board.
I'm surprised he did.
Wow.
I'm surprised he didn't Harrison. I think I would have just Harrison is destroy a weapon and bounce a minion and draw a card.
Harrison can be used to like just draw more cards when you destroy the the Weapons Project weapon.
By 1 though.
I guess so.
Because they're always going to swing, right?
Yeah.
And if you play it together, it's such. I feel like on its own, it's a lackluster turn.
Ooh.
Wow, this is interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, this is becoming very, very interesting for cheonsu. Obviously, with the bounce of the Evil Miscreant, he's generating a huge amount more value. And the Hench Clan Shadecall there, 4 mana, 4/7, obviously very, very well statted for its mana cost, has the downside of restoring health to your opponent when it dies. So kind of a blessing and a curse there for cheonsu.
Interesting enough, a reasonable armor killer. Because
True.
it doesn't restore armor to your opponent, it restores health. So although that cheonsu has pushed him down to 21, so the health differential will matter, sometimes you get an early game where it just chips armor all the time, and you're like, oh, well, this is only a bonus.
BloodTrail now in a really awkward spot where he's thinking, what did I use my Brawl on a couple turns ago?
2/1/1s and a little dragon.
3/2? Yeah. This is looking a lot more pressing now. I've got to be honest, I was not expecting cheonsu to be able to get himself in a situation such as this one.
Yeah.
Harrison could find Warpath, which could go 2 times, which isn't even enough really to clear off most of the board.
You need it for next turn with Plague.
Drawing 3 cards, however, this surely has to find him an answer. But it doesn't. there's still no way of clearing up this board. And cheonsu
So
can deliver so
there's
much damage.
17 maximum damage he can do. Oh no, 18 maximum damage he can do. And that includes trading 1/1s in, so he
Right,
can play the 2/1 drops that do 2 damage instead of 1. But still, that's a lot, and he doesn't have to do all that. That's been completely excessive and going max damage.
Exactly.
So
I think what cheonsu pretty clearly here is saying, you do not have the second rule.
So remember when rogues could heal? Oh, look at that armor. It looks so weird on the rogue portrait.
Oh,
12 armor.
I think that may have been the brawl picked up for BloodTrail right in the nick of time to clear off this board. Whether or not it will be enough to save him is a different question entirely.
There's still a million weapons. There's still Myras.
Leroy, a lot of good stuff.
There is no Nomi though, just so
Yes.
we're aware. Because we did see Nomi have a very one-sided win yesterday as well.
Good point.
In Rogue.
I would, however, put BloodTrail in a good spot now, given that he has the ability to, you could just see Ziliax on this turn, right, to clear it up and heal a little bit. And then, of course, the Tomb Wardens on the following turns. Even the Frightened Flunky, wow. So much defensive capabilities. cheonsu, despite coming so close, sees BloodTrail pretty much back up to full health yet again. This is why it's a bad matchup. A miserable matchup.
Yep.
The new lackey from Saviors of Uldum as well, coming in not hot at all here.
I will say as well though, double weapons project and Harrison, 1 is in the deck and 2 has been drawn early on, so that has definitely not helped. Like what, top half of the deck is pretty much 2 brawls, Harrison, double weapons project.
Yeah.
Oof. Still though, Myra's is a beautiful card. It can make things happen if cheonsu can get to it quick enough.
Kind of surprising, I think, to see the Harrison there. I was almost expecting just Flunky and Warden, Tomb Warden, just for the maximum defensive capabilities possible.
This place is scary.
Huh. Okay.
Ready for action.
I mean, this works out pretty well, I guess, for BloodTrail here. But I don't think this is the way I would have sequenced this turn. Like, killing off the weapon there, was that important? Because now damage gets to connect face, whereas I don't think any damage would have been able to connect face if he played the Tomb Wardens. And, you know, I guess he still has the backup of the Tomb Warden. He can trade with the Harrison, then follow up on a much clearer board.
Yeah, and it was extremely unlikely he was going to be dead to the 1 card, right? So maybe you just save it to when Tomb Warden needs to come down and be like, no, too high health taunts. We're being nitpicky, of course.
We are. It's locking out the game now.
Yeah, I think BloodTrail was never dead that turn, so it was always safe.
I completely agree. And now in his deck, the only really good draw I'm looking at is Myra's. I don't think anything else is good enough to get him there anymore. Especially as, you know, Evil Miscreant can't even be activated anymore. Hey.
It's like, what? Who said my name?
Curse of the Casters coming in hot for cheonsu here. As BloodTrail, I think now is the time for Tomb Warden. It closes out the game pretty quickly. And also means that nothing connects face whatsoever.
Oh. Should the Eternal Rover should have been placed somewhere else then? Bit of betrayal, potentially.
Oh, yeah, I guess.
Yeah, small things.
Yeah, fair enough.
Well, that is going to be game. BloodTrail looked a little bit ropey for a minute there.
Yeah.
And like he was going to take the loss, but manages to even it up with his Warrior, which he did protect in his lineup anyway, so he can play. But now it's less about that game, I feel, and more about next game. Not only is it game 3, the deciding game of the match, of course, but the Warrior's gone, so now there's suddenly the Rogue or cheonsu's Warrior versus the Hunter or BloodTrail's Mage. So now it starts to get a little bit like, wait, Rogue should and probably could just destroy Mage.
Yeah.
And I think it's absolutely fine versus Hunter.
I agree.
So suddenly, even though BloodTrail took a good win with the Warrior, I think overall the lineups are looking favourable for cheonsu.
Yeah, I wouldn't be too surprised to see Hunter for BloodTrail here, Rogue for cheonsu. Again, I think that the Rogue from cheonsu lines up very well against both of the decks that BloodTrail has remaining. And if BloodTrail is therefore expecting the Rogue. I think the Hunter probably gives him the best shot of taking it down. I think the Mage is probably a little bit too slow, whereas Hunter, we've seen the secrets, some of them can be very strong, and also just the early game tempo plays it can make, especially when you factor in Zephyrus.
Yeah, 100%. And we're starting to just see, and maybe just getting used to again, it feels like just shaking off some cobwebs of Conquest.
Yeah.
Basically, and saying, well, instead of we've been so laser focused on singular decks and singular matchups, now we're just going back to seeing, okay, what do the lineups look like? And how do the bans become effective? Because again, I feel like Druid would have been a great pick if BloodTrail was allowed to, but it has been banned out.
So
this is where you start.
Ban.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Solid ban, good protect as well. Yes, BloodTrail can, if you say you have the perfect protect, and it always gets you a win because it's your best deck, whatever, great. But what do the other two decks look like? That's the big point in this so far, I feel.
Yeah, I fully agree. But it will all come down to this final match. And I think we just got confirmation that it's going to be the Rogue, the Mage for BloodTrail.
Mage versus Rogue, yeah, it's going to come down. So we get to see basically, you know, top tier Mage Reno deck here, but versus this Rogue that just feels scrappy and maybe like a Rogue should. There's something, you know, high and mighty, and the Rogue just comes in, backstabs, and that's it. It wins, steals the game basically. So very thematic, but I think BloodTrail is going to have one of those games where you're not punished for playing a Reno deck, and you in fact just draw perfectly to be able to fend off what I feel is a very consistent Rogue deck right now.
I agree. I think it's interesting when you say consistent, because I agree, you know, it can push a lot of damage early on, but I feel this is the most heavily dependent on combo Rogue deck we've had in a while. When on the 3-cost slot, you have Miscreant, SI, Scimitar, and Edwin all vying for that combo effect to get the ball rolling. I think it can often find if you're not on the coin, or if you have too many 3-drops, you're falling behind a little bit on tempo. But I mean, we saw yesterday how powerful just a handful of weapons can be. Against the Mage, you just push everything face, and a lot of the time they just can't stand up against it. Yeah,
exactly. And when I'm, you know, we're looking at the Rogue deck now, but the Reno Mage, outside of getting, say, exactly a Keysmith or a Bone Wraith early on, you're going to get hit. Like, it's going to happen, right? Unless you get those exact cards to defend, which is 2 out of 30. Yes, there's 1 or 2 others you could use, but more or less those, like, you're going to get beaten up at least in the early game. And for me, it's the Rogue pushes early, the Mage might stabilize a little bit, but 1 sap and a couple of attacks later, the Mage's dead anyway. So it's going to be a close one. I feel like the Rogue is good because I see it the other way of there are so many 3 costs to get the combos starting to roll that it's more likely you can do consistently, right? Because you just got, it's like Hunter has so many good 3-drops that their turn 3 is so often fairly strong.
Good point.
Because all their 3-drops are good. And speaking of getting the ball rolling, there was backstabbing to the Scimitar there, but decided to throw the Scimitar away. What do you think?
Well, I was almost more interested in the Myra's unstable element.
Yeah, that was my next question.
Yeah. Well, I think like backstab hook Scimitar, you're up against Mage, which is not a particularly tempo deck. Like the only target you're going to have on turn 3 to backstab is really Zephyrus, I think. And unless they have exactly Zephyrus, or maybe Doomsayer as well, it feels a little bit inconsistent. So I can fully understand getting rid of the
but the backstab was kept, though.
Keeping the backstab is a little bit more
the cross
suspect.
Point I'm a little bit confused on myself.
Like, I think I would have liked digging a little bit more heavily for the Fairy Dragon and the Thug as well. Hench Clan Thug, I think, is very, very nicely positioned against Mage.
And now, not a bad pickup whatsoever. Do you think the Deadly Poison was needed?
Blood and plunder.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's very low value.
But then next turn you can just Deadly Poison Miscreant.
Right, yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, I'm a little confused by that one, I've got to be honest.
Yeah, it wasn't mana efficient, you lost the charge.
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of works out now because of that SI7 agent, but still,
it's still floating a mana. It still could have come down.
Yeah, it would have been exactly the same, except you'd have more options if a minion wasn't played. So if a minion wasn't played, it's just an SI, which yes, it kind of works out the same, but you're just missing out a little bit. That was kind of strange.
I agree. I think that was a little bit of a mistake there, neutral to see.
There's the Bone Wraith, so key in this early defense. If this just soaks up 1 turn's worth of attacks, it can make a huge difference to the game.
However, because of this very strong minion start from BloodTrail, coin 4 into 4, the lackey, because of the backstabs, become active. You allow the rogue to activate these combo effects, which, as I've talked about, is so key at the moment. And now we could be looking at trade with the Corsair, then evolve it, which is nuts.
And you can even gobble in this to trade off the Reborn version and push 3 extra damage.
That looks good
This
to
is
me.
a very good turn.
Yeah. Some pretty nutty 5 drops you're looking at as well if you get lucky.
Don't try anything.
Okay, a 3-5. It's hard to kill. Pushes some damage.
It's not bad, I guess. It's not bad. It's not great. I think you're looking at.
Well, now he can save the Goblin Lackey.
Does he even care about that though? Wouldn't he rather spend his mana? Because like
But
double Snip Snap next turn is already.
What if you draw a
Sims.
Scimitar though? Oh, I guess you have Snip Snap. I'm just thinking of just combo potential. Like, do you
Yes.
really need
Yeah.
to use it? Maybe you could just hold it.
I think like getting a 4/3 here and pushing 1 extra damage phase and having an extra 1/1 is worth it.
Okay.
It's a different way of going about it. It loses 1 damage but keeps health on a higher health minion.
5 is kind of awkward as well.
I guess so. I'm not really sure if this was worth it. I think I like every point of health really does start to stack up. And I guess it means that you have attack more evenly distributed rather than all in on a 3/3 minion which dies to Zilliax. So I mean it works out okay.
And like a freeze or whatever, so... Now, Snip Snap into Scimitar is doable. You do lose the echo effect on the Snip Snap, but you gain a very powerful weapon, so I think it's sign me up for that.
Really, I think I'd rather double Snip Snap.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like your hand's looking very, very weak indeed. Or very low on value, I should say. And I think getting
I guess
these
I
extra
just see
minions
Leroy
now-
and just want to push.
Yeah. I
Hundreds
fully
of
agree.
damage to face.
I think given they're at 29 though, having the biggest board presence possible equates to more damage in the long run anyway.
We're gonna have some fun.
And it does mean, of course, that you are more resistant to Reno, even though it can, I believe, still clear the majority of it, not quite all of it. You're pushing forward a lot more damage now.
Oh, combo activate it first. Scimitar.
Perfect.
Yeah, you got 50% chance of bouncing something good.
I mean, you joke. There is quite a lot of the time in this rogue deck where you overwrite a completely healthy weapon with another one just to get the death rattles rolling.
And now, this was really my point in the way I normally see the matchup go, is Rogue has pushed a good chunk of damage. Mage has kind of stabilized. We can see Frost Nova, there's Polymorph, you know, there are tools to stabilize. But BloodTrail's on 15 health, and there's a weapon, a Leroy and another weapon that add up to 15.
You just die. You need the cards.
It's very tricky, isn't it?
This is even post-Zilliax as well. The Armored Goon, I believe that gains you 5 armor whenever you attack with your hero.
Yep. Unlucky. Oh, that's not a solid statted minion.
Yeah, it's just a better Boulder Fist Ogre, I guess. Ooh.
That
one's a little bit more interesting.
Wait. He's just dead. He's just dead. Leroy. Oh, if he bounces it.
What? He can trade in both the minions,
Yeah.
and then Leroy, that's just lethal. That was the worst one he could get.
That's just game.
Because
cheonsu
the Snip
takes the
Snap
win.
would have made 2 death rattles otherwise, so he couldn't have guaranteed a Leroy bounce.
Yep.
But
Push the
that
same amount of
guaranteed
damage.
it.
Okay, that's really funny. cheonsu takes the win there. Down to maybe this is just some level of redemption or catharsis maybe for people who've been playing against Mage and they're like, Conjurer's Call.
How does it feel
sucks.
now?
But yeah, that was a kind of a very quick finish, but
Yeah.
did just display our point of just the way the matchup works. It's like attack, stabilize, too late, you're dead, sort of thing with the rogue. That's how I feel it plays out very often, actually.
And, you know, to cheonsu's credit there, while we were debating the backstab keep, one of the things that it really made very apparent and worked very well for him was that it activated his combo effects, which I think often can fall very flat in the rogue deck, and it was crucial to get him that victory. Being able to combo the SI and, of course, the Evil Miscreant as well was super important to get that mid-game pressure, which BloodTrail just didn't have the answer for.
Especially when we've seen rogues yesterday that run, say, prep, for example, like they aren't running this deck, so you just have less and less tools that can very easily combo, but cheonsu takes the win there, and he's looking pretty good. I believe that is 2-0 for cheonsu this weekend, if my memory from yesterday serves.
I think you're right, and 0-2 for BloodTrail as well, which is a bit of a grim start for him, given that, you know, we all know BloodTrail. We expect more from him, given his HCT performance last year.
Yeah, but we can start to see where there can be gaps in lineups already. We're starting to just see, well, okay, if I bring this, and they ban what I expect them to, yeah, they get one win, but it's not about one win, it's about who can get two. So very cool so far. And speaking